Do you ever feel like no matter what you do, it's like never enough? Like you're constantly chasing like this finish line that keeps moving. Like how horrible is that? Ugh. Well, I've been there. I understand. That was my life for years. And I thought that if I worked really hard, that I would succeed and have, all the things that come with success. But instead, I was burnt out. I was burnt out and tired and not enjoying my life at all. I was just losing touch with what truly mattered in my life. And it wasn't until like a few years ago that I really looked at my life and thought, like, is this really how I want to live? And the answer was no, it was not. And then that's when I started making like slow and meaningful changes to my life for it to become a life that I actually love. Hey there, I'm Suan, and welcome to Cozy Notes, this wonderful little space where we can slow down, rediscover joy, and live life more intentionally. So grab a cuppa and let's dive in. This episode is all about hustle culture and why it is so overwhelming. And for one, there's a constant pressure to achieve. Like we have to constantly achieve. Nothing is ever good enough. I mean, it's permeated like into like things that there shouldn't be no pressure to do. Like, I don't know, like the pressure to one up ourselves constantly. Like we're not even trying to one up other people. We're trying to one up ourselves. Like everything that we do, we need to do better and more extravagant. Everything has to be 1% better. It can't just be good enough. And it's overwhelming. So hustle culture like leads us to measure our worth. Like our worth is based on our productivity and in our work, which doesn't make any sense because the work is part of our life. Like work is something that we have to do in order to live a life that we love, in order to afford the things that we want to do. Because let's be honest, having a good job allows us more freedom, well, supposedly more freedom and more space and more money to be able to do those things that we love. Whereas someone who is, living below the poverty line and struggling to meet ends, they're not going to have a lot of free time to pursue hobbies and go hiking and traveling, etc. That's definitely a middle class and higher problem that we have. It's definitely something we have to think and consider. So for those of us that do have the means to have a lifestyle where we can have hobbies and go hiking and go traveling, etc., it's like we're burning ourselves down. Like we're like in survival mode, even though we don't need to be in survival mode, like we're hustling and trying to make more money and trying to do more. And our worth is based on how productive we are and how well we work. And that is becoming overwhelming and it's becoming tiresome. We're burning out and we're kind of like losing our identities. You know what I mean? Like we don't know who we are. Who are we without our work? Who are we without our work? And who are we without our partners or our family? Who are you? Who are you? So besides the constant pressure to achieve, hustle culture also leads us to burnout and stress. Like how many of us are stressed out from work? How many of us are stressed out from trying to do more and be better? And then we burn out and we doom scroll and then we're online looking at other people doing more and being better. And that just like exasperates what we're feeling. And it's like a never ending thing. It takes a toll on our mental and our physical well-being. And with that, we need to change that. We need to change that. And also hustle culture disconnects us from our values. When we're all constantly hustling, we're not really making decisions and doing things based on our values. Instead, we are doing them based on achieving and doing more. Like there's this need to constantly be better. And I'm not too sure where it comes from. Like, yeah, we want to improve ourselves and we want to grow. But at the same time, when are things good enough? When is our life good enough? When do we stop needing more and just be happy with what we have? Like, when does that end? That's like a question I think I stay up late at night thinking about, like, when does it end? And so I think it's really important to like let go of the whole hustle culture. And I'm not saying like you just do a 180 and not achieve That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just letting go of constantly needing to achieve in order to feel good about yourself. And instead, let's, slow down a bit and really think about our actions and what we're doing, and are they aligning with our values, and is this thing that we want to achieve really something important? Like, once we achieve it, are we going to be satisfied and happy, or are we going to want more after that? Will that not be enough? And then we'll need something new. When is it enough? So for me, like, just thinking about that, when is it enough? Is it good enough? Like, I have to tell myself that all the time. It's good enough. It's good enough. It's good enough, because I get into perfection mode. And especially like when I'm editing or I'm writing, I keep tweaking things, trying to make things better. And that causes me to not publish the item that I've been working on, instead of getting it out there, mistakes and all. Like, I just constantly want it to be better and want to do well. And I just have to stop myself and say, it's good enough. It's good enough. It's good enough. You're good enough. It's good enough. And so what if you made a mistake? So what if it's not perfect? So what if it's not your best work ever? It's good enough. And hopefully that resonates with someone out there. Once I started doing that, that really helped with my mental state and my emotional space. It just creates more room in my life. Like, instead of working hours editing a video, I get it done like in a couple hours instead of like all day, sometimes 2 days or 3 days in the past. And I feel like it's more authentic. I feel like my work is more authentic and not so edited. You know what I mean? It's more relatable in so many ways. And I think that's a good thing, especially today with AI. It's just everywhere. Haven't you noticed? Like, when you go on Instagram or on YouTube or on Facebook, or, just even searching on Google, like, everything is just so fabricated, created. It's just not human. Like, you can tell it's not human. You can tell that it's been AI created. And like, you go on Pinterest and everything, like, most of the pictures on there, like, it's no longer real photos. Like, I see so many AI created pins, and it's kind of disheartening, because it's really basic. Not basic. It's boring. It's boring. It's boring. And I don't want to be boring, and I don't want you guys to be boring, and I don't want our lives to be boring. And we just need to spice things up a bit. We need to have we need human created content out there. We need real content out there. We need real things. And so I feel like letting go of hustle culture allows us to have more mental and emotional space. It creates room for relaxation and creativity and joy and doing the things that we love, when we're not so worried about doing more, getting better, and basically becoming workaholics. Basically, let's not be a workaholic. Let's have a life. Because in the end, when we're dying and we're on our deathbed, we're going to look back and think, oh yeah, I lived a good life. I worked really hard. Is that really what we want to look back at? Or do we want to look back at our lives and think about how we had, such a good relationship with our kids and our partners, and we got to travel and see the world, and we read so many books, and we just really enjoyed our lives, and our lives weren't just a constant stress ball. Yeah, I want to look back at my life and see it as something that's rather well lived. Wouldn't you? Letting go has also improved my well-being. For one, like I said, there's less stress and there's less burnout. It's improved my mental and emotional space and improved my well-being overall. And it's given me fulfillment. Like, I feel so much more fulfilled in my life now than I did when I was a teacher and I was hustling and I was doing all the things, and I was, in charge of all these different after school activities, and I was like on the school site council, and I was an AVID coordinator and a teacher and just all these things. And it was just so much. And I worked so hard, and then I burned out. And then I became a parent, and I pretty much did the same thing. thinking that as a stay-at-home mom, I needed to prove myself because I have this college degree. I went to graduate school and now I'm here not using my degree. Instead, I'm staying home, raising my kids. There's some stigma about that, right? We think that if you're home raising your kids, that you're either not a high achiever or you are uneducated or what have you, but that wasn't the case, right? Like that's often not the case. And I chose to stay home because I wanted to be there for my kids' milestones because I knew how much of a workaholic I was. And I didn't want to repeat that. I didn't want to go back to work and like put all my energy there and neglect my kids. So then I became like I don't know, it's not a workaholic mom, but I became like a super mom, I guess, doing all the things, hosting play dates, having like fun crafts and activities to do at the play dates, making foods that are fun and cute. And yeah, it was too much. And I burnt myself out on that too, on just being like the super mom, like cooking things from scratch. And when I finally decided to like not do all the things, when I finally decided to prioritize myself in order to be the best mom and partner I could be, that my life changed, and it changed for the better. It brought me fulfillment. Like I'm happy. I'm satisfied with my life. Like it's good enough, Sure, I don't have an Instagram account with like 50,000 followers and all that, but that's okay. Like I don't need that. Sure, we don't go on like fancy vacations. We're not going to Disneyland every year. We're not taking our kids to tropical paradises for vacation. We're just living our life as it is within our means, and it's good enough. It's satisfying. It's happy. And do we want more? Sure. There's some things in our lives that we would love to have to be able to do. But if we don't do it, it's like I'm not gonna be sad about it. I'm not gonna be disappointed, I'm gonna be happy with my life. Letting go has brought a lot of fulfillment for me. So what I think we need to do is kind of like redefine productivity. There's this movement going around called slow productivity. And it's not so much like moving at a snail's pace, and it's not like anti-productivity, but it's just moving at your pace, basically, at your personal pace, not a pace that society dictates, not a pace that some online coach out there says that you should be working towards. I believe it's focusing on quality over quantity. I am on YouTube, and so many like people out there are pushing for new YouTubers to like put out like 2 or 3 videos a week in order to grow and become like a big YouTuber. And I mean, I get it. The more content you put out there, the better you get, the more eyes you have on your stuff. But at the same time, that burns you out. That's like you being a workaholic. There's a lot goes into editing and filming. It's too much. And I don't think you have to do that. Instead, create quality videos. And I'm not saying like, if you are into YouTube, I'm not saying that you only make one quality video a year, that kind of a thing, but just at least produce content that's quality. I mean, when it also comes to your work, you want to do quality work. You don't want to just push out work because that's what you have to do. You want to do a good job. We want quality over quantity. Like in our society right now, haven't you noticed when you buy things, the quality is not as good as it used to be? And that's just since like in the past 5 years. And then even think about like the quality of, I remember this refrigerator my parents got in the 80s. It lasted forever, like 30 years. And my husband and I, we've been together for 20 years. And I think we're on our 3rd refrigerator right now because they don't last that long. They don't last as long. Yeah. So quality over quantity. I think that's the way to go. So like the things that we do in our lives, we want them to be meaningful. We want them to be important. Instead of having an endless to-do list of things that we don't really need to do, like we waste a lot of time doing things that aren't really important, doing things that don't either move the needle or just things that don't add value to our lives we're doing things that just aren't necessary. They're just like busy work is basically what it is, right? So we also need to think about making intentional goals. So rather than trying to do everything, we just kind of like focus on like 2 or 3 intentional goals to make our lives better, things to aim towards that instead of trying to do it all. Like we don't need to do it all. We don't need to do it all right now. And your goals don't need to be like a whole year. You don't need to be making resolutions for the whole year. This is what I'm going to do. This is my goal for the year. Why don't we just narrow it down? Maybe it's your goal for the next like 2 or 3 months. That's good enough. A goal for a season, right? I don't really like to set goals, to be honest. I prefer having like a word of the year. I think I've mentioned this before. So my word of the season, I should say, word of the season. So right now, while I'm recording this, it's winter, and my my word of the season is cozy. I want to be nice and cozy and warm. I want my house to be cozy. I want just everything in my life to feel like one big giant hug. And I think I'm doing that, even though it's really hot today and I'm wearing a sweater because I want to feel cozy, but at the same time, I'm like starting to sweat right now. So I should probably be more flexible with my coziness idea, my coziness intention. But yeah, like I'm doing the things to make my home cozy. I'm like creating this cozy space in my life, and it's really enjoyable. And I'm being intentional about it. Like all my choices that I'm making are based on cozy. You know what I mean? I'm being very intentional rather than a mindless goal that I'm probably not going to follow through, because I know myself. I'm being honest with you, being honest with myself. If I make a goal and then I map it out, what I'm going to do every day in order to reach that goal, et cetera, it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm not going to end up following through. I know myself too well. But once I started doing these like seasonal intentions, I feel like my life has improved. I feel like I am moving forward. I feel like I am attaining the goals in my life. And yeah, so being intentional about it. And also in regards to redefining productivity, I think we need to include rest, because that is something that we don't do. We think that we'll rest when we're done, right? That's like the idea. I'll rest when I'm done, or I'll rest when I'm dead. But to be honest, you need to rest so that you can be productive. You need to rest so that you can think straight and make good choices and be intentional. You need to rest in order to refill your cup so that you can do the things that you want to do, fulfill the goals that you want to fulfill. And if without rest, you can't be productive. It's like this yin and yang kind of a thing. It's like you need both. You can't just have one without the other. You can't be productive without rest, and you can't rest without being productive, because what are you resting from if you haven't been productive before, right? And so many of us have like sleep issues, and we're not getting the rest that we need. We're not sleeping well during our free time. We're not doing activity that don't have us on our devices. We're not truly resting. And I think that is really important to do. All right. So how do you let go of hustle culture? How do we let go of this constant need to be productive, basing our value on our productivity? Like, how do we get away from that? Well, for one, it's creating boundaries, learning to say no. And you need to have clear limits around your work and around screen time and your personal time, so that you're just not constantly in busy mode. It's hard to do in the beginning. It's going to be challenging. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be something you're going to do overnight. Like, stop looking for those quick fixes, because there are no quick fixes out there. It's going to take time. It's going to take work. And learning to set those boundaries around work, especially if you're a workaholic, you may end up doing like a 180 and then realizing that you kind of went too far and needing to go find like a nice middle ground is what you need to do, basically. And that just takes experimentation. You need to experiment. You need to see what works for you. And for me, I'm a homeschool mom. So having time limits, like hours, like work hours, I don't do that. I just kind of work around my kids' schedules. But then I also have to tell myself that I need breaks. Like it's really easy for me to work on the weekends, and I don't want to do that. Like I try to get as much done during the week so that I can spend time with my family as a whole on the weekends. Whereas during the week, I also try not to work at night because I need to rest at night. That's another thing that I found I have a habit of doing is working late into the night. And so I need the rest. And so it's just finding what works for me. And you need to do the same too. You need to figure it out. You need to experiment and to see where your boundaries need to be set. Where can you adjust? So yeah, don't want to always be in busy mode because that is just not helpful at all. Which kind of leads me into like taking intentional breaks. Like you need to make sure you take breaks. I know people are really into the Pomodoro technique, where you work for like 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break, but that just never really works for me. I like deep, long focus periods, but I also know that I get so deep into it, it's hard for me to come out of that. And I've been working really hard on just reminding myself to stop and to take a break. Because when I do take a break, it feels refreshing. When I come back to whatever I'm working on, I'm coming back with a new set of eyes. Like I'm just seeing things a little bit differently. It's just so much better when I do take a break rather than just diving all in and just trying to get things done. Like when I'm homeschooling my kids, like we take breaks. We take breaks throughout the day. And then we also take breaks throughout the year because I think that's important. I know there's a lot of homeschoolers out there that will homeschool through the holidays by having like themed holiday activities for their kids to do, but we don't do that. I'm just like, we need a break. You need a break. I need a break. We all need a break. Let's take a break. And we just came back from our break. So today is like our first day back to homeschooling, and it's kind of a transition period to get back into the groove of things, which is fine. Being intentional with your breaks because we all need them, even your kids. Your kids need them too. And then you also need to start reframing your idea about what success is in order to not have your value based on how successful and how productive you are. Because so many of us do that, right? Like we get down on ourselves for not being so productive on a certain day rather than just being okay with like, you know what? I was really tired and my body needs to rest and I'm listening to my body rather than getting upset that you weren't productive and being not so nice to yourself. So instead, we need to define success on our own terms. What does success really mean to me? And so you're just going to have to journal and you have to deep dive into it and really, really see what does success mean? When are things good enough? So when we finally let go of constantly needing to be productive, how does it improve our life? Well, for one, you're going to feel much more creative and you're going to have clarity because slowing down gives your mind space to think. And when you really think about things, you get clear on your life. You get really clear on your life. And you also come up with like fresh ideas too, which is good because like I said before, I'm tired. I'm tired of being online. It is so boring. Everything is like the same content, same look, same everything. It's just so boring. So let's slow down and be creative and be unique. And when we learn to slow down, we're also being a bit more resilient and flexible because we're not rushing around, right? So we have the space to be flexible. We have the clarity to be flexible. And yeah, it just makes life so much more manageable when we slow down and we're just really doing things with intention. And then it also allows us to really connect with ourselves deeper, I think. Like I feel like I have such a much more deeper connection with myself. Like I know myself so well. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat things to myself. I'm not going to think I can get things done. I'm going to know myself like, you know what? Hey, Suan, yeah, that's some lofty goals you got there. But do you really have the time and the capacity to do the things that you say that you want to do? Probably not. So let's be honest with ourselves and let's reconsider what we can actually handle or want to handle or need to handle. So try letting go of one small thing in your life that causes you to hustle and see how that goes and like play with it, experiment. It's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be some growing pains. It's going to take time to tweak your life, to tweak what productivity really means to you in order to find what productivity really means to you. Because it's just so ingrained into our brains from our society, what hustle culture is, like what we need to do, that we need to be productive, we need to do more, we need to give more, we need to just more. And instead, we just need to remind ourselves it's good enough. It's good enough. You're good enough. I hope you found value in this episode, and if so, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review on whatever platform you're listening or watching this on, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Ciao.